What's up, guys? You're watching Petrol 360, and today we're going to be diving into this T5 transmission. So for the 66 F100 project, the 3-speed in it has absolutely got to go. It is, the first gear is way too high. The third gear is way too low. I plan on driving this thing, on my typical commute to work, and that means backcountry roads as well as some interstates. So 65 at a bare minimum and 65 in that 3-speed just won't do it. So pretty easy option is a T5 transmission. This was very common for Mustangs and things like that. It's really common for small blocks. Not very common for the 300. A lot of, the factory transmission that would have come behind that engine is an M5 OD or an M5 OD R2, which is a truck style transmission. That's actually what we have in my dad's 64 F100. So this transmission has a higher, lower? I don't know. The fifth gear in it is a little bit higher, so it's going to have less RPM at highway speeds. So I think at 2,000 RPM, we're going to be running 65 miles an hour, which sounds perfect. So I picked this thing up a while back, picked it up used, came out of supposedly an 87 Mustang, which makes sense. I matched a lot of the numbers and everything, and that seems to be what this comes back to. A little backstory on it. I've had it for a while, had it before the truck. Any kind of manual transmissions are getting harder to find, especially in decent shape for a good price. You can find these for $500 to $800 fairly easily without bell housings and stuff. But actually getting a good deal on one is proving to be become difficult. So this one came up for I think about $150. It was a little ways away, but I decided, I'm going to make the drive and go pick it up because I can't say no to it. Even if some parts are broken, I still have a really good starting point. So hit up the guy, told him I was going to come the next day, all good. I confirmed with him the day I was going to pick it up. I was coming out, and then all of a sudden he's like, oh, hey man, somebody came earlier today and they were shifting it really hard and now it won't go into fifth gear. I was like, okay, well, sometimes, if you don't spin the input and output, the clutching teeth won't match up and stuff. So I wasn't super worried about it, but he automatically went down to $100. So either he had no idea what he was talking about or something was up, but I was already driving, so I just went for it. Got down there, guy was cool. He had a couple project cars around. He should have known what he was talking about. So I brought it home, and that same day, I went ahead and took this thing apart. So pulled off this tail housing, and wouldn't you know it, fifth gear shift fork was broken. It was it wasn't connected to the shift rod. It had broken up at the top where the pin goes through it. I was like, well, that would definitely explain why fifth gear was not engaging. But the kicker is he said he didn't check in this thing, but there wasn't parts to the shifter in the transmission. If he broke the shift fork, all the broken aluminum, cast aluminum would have been down in the bottom of the case, but it wasn't. So this guy pulled a fast one on me, which, whatever, I still think I got a good deal. But of course, I wish he would have been honest with me. I still would have paid the price. But yeah, so I have a rebuild kit. Huge shout out to the Gearbox. If you're looking for T5 rebuild kits, I think they're probably the third company that pops up. Their website looks a little old and outdated, but they've got pretty much all the parts you need for like a T56. Here we go, use their card for M22, M21, M20, T56, TR6060, TKX, T10, Super T10, and top loaders, and obviously T5s as well. So they tons of parts. They had everything I needed to go ahead and rebuild it. So a new front bearing retainer, a new fifth gear shift fork, as well as a rebuild kit. I did not get a master rebuild kit, but I did get the standard rebuild kit. I have rebuilt one of these transmissions before, and I found that the master rebuild kit had some stuff that I really didn't need, some like extra shims and things like that. It was quite a bit more expensive. My kicker is I thought that my nice master rebuild kits did not were the only ones that came with carbon synchros rather than like a standard synchro. But it turns out that their standard one comes with carbon synchros as well, so that should be perfect. They worked well in the RX-7 that I swapped with the 302, so I'm expecting good things out of this. Yeah, I mean, there's not much more to it but to do it. So first I'm gonna crack this thing open, check all my parts, and give you guys a closer look. And then I'll probably all I'm gonna do tonight, pull off the tail housing, show you kind of what the fifth gear looks like. And I wanna show you guys how to tell if the synchros are good in these. I know it's pretty much impossible to tell if something's good other than looking at it and see if the gears are there. But I did learn something that kind of tell if the synchros are worn out. So stick around and we'll find out. All right, so I got the tail housing off as well as the top plate, and here's what I was talking about with fifth gear. So this on the outside here is fifth gear. From what I heard, kind of a rumor maybe in another video, is that this transmission was originally built as a 4-speed, and they added fifth gear, and that's why it's on the outside of the actual case. So this is fifth gear. This is a selector fork, so this engages the clutching teeth, that engages fifth gear. And this is the shift rod, and this is a missing chunk of aluminum that actually shifts fifth gear. So it's pinned into this shift rod, and it broke off, and this chunk was not in the transmission when I took it apart. So I knew that the guy had been in here before me, or at least someone has. Maybe it wasn't him. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, I guess. So whenever you're looking inside of one of these transmissions, there are a handful of things to look at. Obviously, you want to look at the gears themselves. Are the gears in good shape? Spin the transmission over. I actually have 1 or 2 chipped teeth on the inside here, so I'm kind of worried about this a little bit. I'm going to see how much one of these are. It may be worth it just to go ahead and replace it. And then down below underneath here is the counter shaft, and we want to check that too. That'll be easier to check when we pull all this out. This is the shift slider. This is what changes gear. So first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, and then fifth gear. And what this does is slides back, and it engages some little teeth inside of here. We'll see it. Let me zoom in a little bit. So it engages these, find my finger, these teeth here. There are ribs inside of here. This is the synchronizer ring, and then these are the clutching teeth. So this is actually what engages this gear. So with the synchronizer, what it does is speeds up the this side of the shaft with the input shaft. So fourth gear is on the input shaft, third, second, first, and fifth are on the main shaft, and these synchronizers are what speeds up or pretty much matches the input and the output speed, so you can slip it into the gear without grinding. And one of the main things you want to look at is especially second gear, because that's the gear that people are going to be power shifting into. Nobody power shifts in the first gear. You're going to be power shifting into second gear, third gear, and fourth gear. Second gear tends to get most of the wear, and this actually does have a decent amount of wear, so it's going to be hard to show you, but see that very edge? It's not super fine and crisp. It looks kind of rounded off. And then we'll compare that here to third gear. See, that one's a nice triangle shape. You can especially see it here on fourth gear. It's a nice point compared to second gear. Now this one does have a bigger engagement clutch teeth, so it has more bite, but I don't know. I'm gonna look and see how much those cost to get a new one. Oh, and I guess one more thing is, we got first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear, and this is reverse right here. So when you engage reverse, you're engaging the outside of your first, second slider. So if you open one of these up, now you kind of have an idea of what you're actually looking at, and hopefully this will help if you're trying to decide if you want to use a transmission or not use a transmission. Oh, my goodness. I forgot to talk about how to tell if the synchronizer is worn out. So this third or second gear synchronizer is gone. It's toast. So the synchronizer is this gray ring right here, and we see how much gap there is between this gray ring and the gear itself, the clutching teeth. There's really nothing there. There's no gap. Look over here between third gear and then here on fourth gear, we have a small gap. Now I can move these and I can get them to touch, but if you take the entire thing and slide it forward, which is going to be really hard for me to do, let me see if I can. Okay. So if we take this entire thing and move it evenly down, it does not touch. There's still a gap. And so what that means is there's still friction material on the inside of this. It's kind of a conical shape. So it's like a cone. And what happens is as you slide this in, it starts to engage this gear and speed it up. And there's a friction material, kind of like a brake pad or a clutch or anything like that. And it will wear out eventually. It's a normal thing. But this is how you can tell if it is worn out. If you have a gap, then you should be good. Whereas here, we can see, let's see if I can shift it. There we go. So I shifted it to the first gear. So with this ring, these are touching. So I know that the second gear synchro ring is toast. So if I was shifting hard, or maybe even just shifting easily into second gear, we would probably grind on these teeth, which is probably why they're worn down. So that gives you a really quick idea of what to look for whenever you open up one of these transmissions if you are going to buy one. So yeah, I am going to keep to work. I don't think I'm going to shoot very much of this rebuild because I'm not the best person in the world to show you. I am going to be following tutorials online as well. I've done one of these before. It's been about 6-7 years ago. So I need to brush back up on it, but I am excited to dig back in. So guys, got the input shaft and the main shaft out, and well, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. The bearing surface from the input shaft to the main shaft is absolutely torched. As you can see, there is a lip right there, and it is all kinds of chewed up. I have no idea what would have caused this. All the bearings are all chewed up too, but it's the main shaft is absolute junk, which sucks. Second gear, I probably would have had to replace. Looking at these dog teeth, they are very worn as well. But everything else in this transmission looks great. So, well, honestly, right now I'm kind of up in the air what I'm going to do. To get a main shaft, I've seen some on eBay for $100, and then I'm going to put $100 in getting a second gear, and probably another $40 to get a 1-2 shift selector. So I'm starting to get to the point where it just doesn't make sense to rebuild this transmission. So don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend some time looking at all my options and go from there. The good news is I can sell most of the stuff for and definitely get my money back out of it. Of course, that'll take longer and be a little bit more annoying, but you know, it is what it is. So yeah, don't know what the next step is, but you guys will see that shortly. Okay, so last night found out that this transmission is more or less junk, or it's not worth rebuilding. So went online, started doing some research and stuff, and thankfully I think I found what I need to fix this. Let me grab it real quick. Well, that might do it. Okay guys, so last night I went back and forth on what exactly I was going to do with this transmission essentially being junk. It is rebuildable. I can get a replacement main shaft, I can get a replacement second gear and a shifter, or the selector for second gear, and you know, I can rebuild this thing, no problem. But for the cost of that, I more than paid for this. So this is another T5 transmission. This one's a little bit different. It came from a 90s V6 Mustang. And I wasn't super sure about it. I was messaging this guy back and forth about midnight. Thankfully it does have a tag on it. I was able to decode that last night and verify that at least the tag is from a V6, so that part of the story matched up. And then once I got this home today, matched up the case number and the tail housing number in here, and this top plate is correct, but the numbers are on the inside on these later ones. But everything here looks like it is V6, and the kicker is this transmission holds just as much torque as that transmission, at least for what Tremec says, and Tremec has built both of these, so they're both rated for the same output. So if that one was going to work behind a V8 Mustang, then this one should be fine as well. Granted, these are not perfect transmissions, but I think they're going to do what I need them to do. So this one has been rebuilt. We've got some gray silicone in here. He said it had been rebuilt. So what I'm going to do tonight is I am going to go ahead and open this up because I still have the rebuild kit sitting here, and if I need to, I can rebuild this one. Hopefully that won't be the case. Again, it was supposed to be rebuilt, so I guess we'll check and see. Then it comes to the bell housing. So this is a V6 bell housing for the 3.8 liter, I believe. And these will work on Windsor V8s. So it's going to fit the 300, a 302, and a 351 Windsor. So the V6 one will work. The kicker is the flywheel size and the block plate are different. So the V6s have 164 tooth flywheels, and the starter is moved out a little bit to accommodate that. So you need a block plate and everything from that to make it work. And I got lucky because I'm pretty sure, well, we'll find out all this stuff whenever we actually go to pull it out, but I think that a 66 F100 has a 164 tooth flywheel. So I should just be able to bolt this up, but I'm going to replace the flywheel and the clutch and everything else. So then I'll have to figure out a clutch situation. I've got some ideas for that. I've already done this before on a 302, my RX-7. If you haven't, I've got some videos on that car. But the nice thing is, it came with another bell housing. The guy I bought it from was trying to get this ready to go into a 66 Mustang, I believe, 66, 65. He had a project going, but he just decided he was just gonna put the automatic back into it. So this is a V8 bell housing for a T5 transmission. And these are, you know, they're not super easy to find. They hold some value. So the nice thing is I have two bell housings that are pretty valuable. This is a flex plate that I have. I believe it was from a C4 transmission from a, I'm trying to remember, maybe it was like an 80s LTD or something like that. But I held onto the block plate. We have another block plate because we're going to have to use one of them for my dad's truck. So I've been testing that. That block plate will not work with this bell housing, but it looks like it does line up with that bell housing. The other nice thing is, it did come with a nice short shifter. So I think this is Stedia. I don't know. It's a typical Mustang brand, but it does have the locks here, the blocks, excuse me, and that's supposed to help for T5s. You set this so you don't shift too far, because I've heard that is also helps brake transmissions. So short shifter, two bell housings, transmission. So we're looking pretty good so far, but of course I have to look inside of this thing to see if it's actually any good or not. So pull the bell housing off, then we're going to pull the tail housing off, then get top cover and start inspecting. So bring you guys in when I've got all that stuff off. Okay guys, we missed it, but I spilled all of the oil out of that transmission on my workbench and onto my floor. So I didn't know it was full. Lesson learned there, obviously, but we have a good transmission. So pulled this thing apart. Everything actually looks really good. He said it was rebuilt, and I believe it was. Our synchros still have lots of meat on them. Here is the end, if I can get it to focus. So right there is the end of our main shaft, and it is perfect. And the other big thing is, if I can get it to focus down there, those teeth right in the center of the frame there, those are our dog teeth for second gear. Those are the ones that always get worn out, and they're in good shape. The only real wear I saw on this transmission was on the reverse. You see some of that there, but that's honestly pretty minimal. So I am stoked with that. This transmission has a synchro for reverse, and I think it was installed incorrectly when it was rebuilt, so that might explain that. But yeah, that's awesome. So we can use this entire thing. The only thing that's different, well, two things that are different. This one has a longer input shaft because it is from a like 94 newer, and it also has an electronic speedo. And because of that, this is the teeth for the Hall effect sensor, and our standard one would go here, but there is not a hole for our speedo gear clip. So not 100% sure. I might have to go back to the drawing board for that. But other than that, man, this thing looks to be good.
So I think I'm gonna throw the other transmission back together just so I can, you know, have it manageable and I don't lose all the pieces. And then I probably will pull the main shaft out of this one so I can get in the bottom of the case and get all the sludge and stuff cleaned out.